Oh, hi. I'm B.T. Aldrich. You know, the holidays are always a special time of year, and this year, even though we can't all see each other together, there's still no reason why we can't share our favorite stories and traditions we've always known. This year, I'm so pleased to introduce a new Christmas story that I hope you'll return to year after year. My own fan fiction, A Very Animorphs Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho!
Our story begins on a cold day in December, at a school, in a town, in a state. I can't tell you more details than that without endangering the identities of our protagonists. I can't even tell you who I am, but let's just say I'm someone you probably already know. Ho, ho. 4 of our heroes are just coming out of the middle school on the last day before winter break starts. And the 5th, well, he hasn't exactly been in school for a while now. Oh man, I can't wait to not have to be in that building for 3 whole weeks, said Marco. I can't wait to finally relax for a change, said Jake. Have you guys already forgotten about school? We just walked outside, said Rachel, and we won't get our semester grades until January. I'm really nervous about how I did on the algebra final. If I don't get at least an 82% on the final, it'll wreck my whole GPA. Marco and Jake exchanged glances. As everyone was well aware, in addition to being the hottest girl in their school, Rachel also had the highest GPA in their whole grade. Relax, Rachel. If I get an 82 on the algebra final, I might actually pass the class, Marco said, as he and Jake laughed. The only way you would get an 82 is if the question was, what is 80 plus 2? Jake laughed back to Marco. You two should really try to care a little bit about school. Pretty soon we'll be in high school, which means college, which means adults and jobs and stuff. That was Cassie, the emotional heart of the group. You girls just take it a little too serious is all. And besides, it's not like we don't have more important things to do anyway. Tobias agrees with us. Where is he? Right, Tobias? Jake shouted. As if out of nowhere, a red-tailed hawk swooped directly at the group. School sucks! They all heard. Yeah, Tobias gets it, shouted Marco. Don't you get started too, Tobias, Cassie said to the bird. It's bad enough that these two won't try for their own sake, but we're all supposed to be pitching in to help you keep learning. We don't want you to be a middle school dropout. Why not? The bird said. It's not like I'll ever need a job like this. What are your qualifications to work at our business? Well, I'm a hawk. Not gonna happen. Marco and Jake were laughing so hard they had to hold on to each other just to keep standing. Tobias noticed and kept going. Oh yes, would you like to buy some of our hawk products? Here is a mouse I caught. Here are some sticks for a nest. You could work at a fly-through window, shouted Jake. You could be like Tony Red-Tailed Hawk, shouted Marco, hysterical. Whatever. I'm just saying, there's no reason Tobias should stop learning, and it definitely wouldn't hurt you two either, Cassie said over their laughter. Anyway, I'm so excited for this ski trip. Fuck yes, said Rachel. You're gonna love this place. We used to go there every year growing up until, well, Rachel stopped. Her parents separated when she was 8. You know, but it's the best. The cabins are so cute and the ski lodge is like perfect and you can ski as much as you want all day. Jake had gotten a hold of himself now. You guys are gonna flip when you see it. Jake was Rachel's cousin, and his parents had continued going on the annual ski trip every year with Jake and his older brother Tom. Jake didn't yet understand generational wealth and passive income, but it was the reason he never worried about anything, but the rest of his friends did. Originally, the cabins up north were all built by Jake's grandparents, and each of their kids, including Jake's parents, inherited one. Over the years, the other siblings decided they didn't want to keep up the ownership, so Jake's mom and dad bought them out. All 4 cabins are theirs now, and they rent them out all year, but always leave 2 weeks open for themselves every Christmas. This year was special because Rachel's mom decided she would bring Rachel and her sisters back to the cabins, and their parents said both Jake and Rachel could bring one friend. Jake was bringing Marco, and Rachel was bringing Cassie. Tobias was a red-tailed hawk, so he would secretly hitch a ride following their train. "It's so cool," Jake said. "Me and Tom always have our own cabin, and we can walk to the lodge, so it's like having our own place. Sometimes we don't even see our parents for a couple days." He stopped because he could see on everyone's faces exactly what he was trying not to think about himself. Marco just said it. "Tom still has a yerk brain though, right?" This was like a sucker punch to Jake's stomach. His older brother Tom had always been Jake's best friend until this year. At first, Jake thought it was just that Tom was growing up and didn't want to hang around his little brother. But it was so much worse than that. You see, these 5 had seen things no other middle schoolers, or almost anyone, would have ever thought possible. It happened that summer, in that abandoned construction site next to the mall. Alien spacecraft appeared one night, and a dying Andalite told them everything. The Yerks are a violent and power-hungry extraterrestrial species that are on a mission to control the entire universe. They've made it to Earth and are taking over people's brains to control them. It seems like an unstoppable plan, right? Well, except for the Animorphs. The last thing that dying Andalite did was to give 5 middle school kids the power to morph into any animal they touch, as the way to stop the Yerk invasion of the planet. That's right. And these 5 kids, Marco, Jake, Rachel, Cassie, and Tobias, the hawk, are those kids, the Animorphs. Tobias wasn't always this way. He used to be just another normal kid too, except for his sad, troubled eyes. But he flew too close to the sun. You see, that's the thing about morphing powers. There are laws that govern morphing, just like any other process in the universe. Tobias stayed too long in a morph, and now he's a red-tailed hawk forever. Tom, Jake's brother, wasn't always this way either, but the Yerks got him. Just the thought of that alien slug creature inside Tom's brain, controlling his every action, practically made Jake want to puke everywhere. "Hey, Jake, it'll be all right," Cassie reassured him. Sweet, conscientious, woke Cassie was always looking out for her friend's wellness. Tom resisted, but they've got him right now. But right now isn't always, and we're gonna get him back. "Cassie's right," added Rachel. "That's why we keep fighting. For Tom, for that dead Andalite, so nobody has to be forced how to think or oppressed by some slug monsters. Besides, right now we have the best fucking trip ahead, and maybe it'll be like too cold for those fucking Yerks where we're going anyway." "Talk about a brain freeze," shouted Marco. "That slug in his head will probably melt out like an icicle." That got Jake feeling better. "You guys are right. This is going to be the best winter break ever. Tobias, you'll be ready to go in the morning, right?" "I'm sleeping at the train station tonight, so I'll be there before all of you," Tobias said. "Man, I wish I could sleep at the train station," Marco said. "If you don't start doing better at school, you'll probably end up there," Jake replied. "Well, I'll see you there too then," said Marco. "All right. See everybody in the morning." "Ugh, the ass crack of dawn," said Rachel. She was right. The train would be leaving the station at 5 a.m. and still wouldn't arrive at the cabins until close to midnight. Rachel, Jake, Marco, and Cassie all went their separate ways to their homes, and Tobias headed out looking for a few squirrels before settling into the eaves of the train station for the night.
Oh wait, did I forget to tell you, I'm BT Aldrich, and I've morphed. In fact, I'm gonna probably morph a few times during tonight's reading, so be prepared. Anyway, where was I? That's right, Chapter 2. "No!" shouted Jake. "You can't do that." His older brother Tom had just joined. Jake and his friends in the lounge of the car train. "Why do you care so much anyway?" asked Tom. "Last time I went to hang out with the Sharing, you acted like they were some kind of evil cult." The Sharing was some kind of... Oh, shit. The Sharing was some kind of evil cult. Specifically, the innocuous front for the Yerks to lure unsuspecting victims to them in order to control a host's brain. That's what happened to Tom. But because of the Yerks in his head, he thought it was just a cool way to hang out with his cool friends. Jake knew better, but he couldn't say so to Tom. Jake shouted back, "It's not even that. I mean, it's that too, but it's also, this is our big Christmas trip." "It's Christmas. So all of a sudden you care about Christmas?" Tom replied. "You know you should come up with me. It's just some of us from the Sharing, and there's going to be snowboarding and hanging out for a few days. Besides, I know you'd like to meet Santa." "Stop it, Tom. You say that every year, and you know I stopped believing in Santa like 8 years ago. And I don't even care about snowboarding either," Jake yelled back. "Suit yourself, Jake," said Tom. "I'm taking the train on Friday to the end of the line." "The North Pole Station?" Jake said. "Yeah. NPS. The snowboarding slopes are supposed to be the bomb. And they have a full half pipe. We're staying in this little village, and we have some big plans," Tom said as he walked out of the lounge car and back to the family sleeper. "Did you hear that?" said Marco. "They have snowboarding." "Are you fucking serious?" Rachel asked. "This is the Sharing we're talking about. And he said they have big plans. Big fucking plans." "Big plans," Cassie repeated, looking around at her friends. "You all know what that means, right? We have to go there." "Are you serious?" Jake replied, exacerbated. "This is our big ski trip. This is supposed to be our one chance to get away from it all." "Look, Jake," Cassie said, scooting over in her seat so that their knees were just barely touching, which made Jake nervous and horny. "We got a choice when we became Animorphs, and we get a choice now. I choose to follow this wherever it takes us. And if that means following some Yerks to the North Pole, that's where I'm going. I know this trip means a lot to you, Jake, but if we don't do something now, there might not even be a ski trip anymore. We're the only ones who can stop this." "God damn it, Cassie. You're right, of course," Rachel said. "Ugh, I hate these fucking Yerks." Outside the train window, a wooded landscape rolled past, with the lightest dusting of snow on the ground. Almost out of sight, riding the thermals, was a red-tailed hawk. Jake sat there, looking around at his friends, the Animorphs, who he just wanted to spend the next 2 weeks with skiing and goofing around. And well, just being regular kids again. But all that had changed now. He could feel Cassie's knee brushing slightly against his, and he knew what they had to do. "Okay," Jake said, "we'll go to the North Pole, but Tom can't know, and neither can my parents." "It's another whole day on the train to get to NPS." "How are we going to get tickets?" Marco blurted out. "Relax, Marco," Jake replied. "Where we're going, we don't need tickets."
I'm BT Aldrich. And now I'm more fancy. Chapter 3. This wasn't how the ski trip was supposed to go. Ever since Jake's parents told him back on Thanksgiving that Rachel's family would be going on the trip again and that they'd both get to bring friends, he'd imagined every day of it. Skiing until they were exhausted, huddling up together, especially near Cassie, to warm up in the lodge, staying up late in their cabin, stuffing themselves on the junk food and surge. Now here he was, huddled up on the roof of a train car. They'd had 3 whole days at the cabins and ski lodge, and while Jake and his friends tried to enjoy it, it was hard to think about anything except what they'd find with the Sharing at the North Pole. What made it worse was how casual Tom was about the whole thing. He kept mentioning to Jake that a lot of really cool people are gonna be there, and that Jake should really stop being so scared to just try snowboarding for once. The second night, when Jake and Marco were in the cabin's den, watching David Letterman, which they were never allowed to stay up for at home, they even overheard Tom on the phone in the kitchen. Yeah, I'm trying to get my kid brother and his friends to come along. Yeah, 4 of them. Of course they'd be easy. They're kids. Okay, 3 of them would be easy. No, duh. They have no idea. His voice grew quieter, and Jake turned down the TV to listen to what Tom said next. One evening, Santa came. Laughing all the way. Temrash 114 out. He hung up the phone and walked into the den. Jake and Marco stared at Tom after walking in. He stared straight ahead, unblinking, standing perfectly still. It was sort of creepy, but what came next was even creepier. Still not moving, Tom said, "'Tis the season," in a voice that was monotone, unhuman, definitely not Tom. Jake and Marco were frozen to the couch. "The number 3 reason that Michael Jordan struck out," David Letterman said on the TV. And just like that, Tom unfroze, his eyes focusing on the TV, then on Jake and Marco. "I'm off to bed," Tom said. "We've got to get up early in the morning to catch the train. Last chance to come along, dudes." "No thanks, Tom. We're staying here, and maybe you should too," said Jake. "Ha ha, no way, Jake. If I were you, I wouldn't miss this trip for the world," Tom said, and walked off to his room. "That slug in your head wouldn't miss it, you mean," Marco said under his breath. "Well, we've got a better idea, don't we, Jake?" All the color had drained from Jake's face. He looked worse than Marco could ever remember seeing him. "I'm sorry, Jake. I know he's still your brother." Marco shifted around and reached for the remote to turn the TV back up. "It's okay, Marco. You're right," Jake replied. "We do have a better idea." That better idea was why they were now on top of a train to NPS, the North Pole Station. If you'd seen the train going by, you might have thought that was unusual, but not totally impossible to see 2 snowy owls, an Arctic tern, a bald eagle, and a red-tailed hawk roosting together on the roof of a passenger car heading north. "How much longer?" asked Marco. He'd morphed into a snowy owl after he saw Cassie in that morph. "I'm getting tired of having to switch back every 2 hours." Unfortunately, that was another rule of morphing. If the Animorphs stayed in a morph for more than 2 hours, they'd get stuck, like what happened to Tobias. So they were taking turns, each one morphing back into their human selves every half hour for at least 5 seconds before morphing back. They couldn't have stayed in their human bodies for much longer than 5 seconds anyway. They were getting extremely far north. The wind across the moving train felt like ice, and a light snow had begun to fall. Although they stowed away a duffel bag full of warm clothes they hoped would still be there once they got to NPS, when they morphed, they only wore thin athletic clothes. "It's 7 o'clock now," Jake said, glancing at his wristwatch. They'd been sure to strap the watch around a railing on the train to make certain they all morphed on time. Also, Jake's watch would glow in the dark if you pushed the top button. "So that means we have 6 more hours. That's 3 more morphs each," Rachel added, fully aware that everyone was already thinking this same thing. "And if it's 7, that means you're up, Cass." "Oh, I'll miss this snowy owl morph even just for 5 seconds, Cassie said. "These feathers are even warmer than my winter coat." Cassie was the best at morphing and was the only one of the Animorphs who'd perfected morphing with all of her regular clothes. The owl's body started to change, the legs lengthening, the big round eyes getting smaller, the beak turning to human lips, and lastly, the broad wings shrinking into arms, which were now wearing a hot pink and green jacket. "Brr," Cassie shivered. "It's not getting any warmer out." As if rewinding a videotape, Cassie morphed in reverse back into the snowy owl. That's more like it. They rode on through the snowy tundra landscape, the stars mostly visible now in the cold night sky. "I don't know what we're going to see when we get to the North Pole, but it really is beautiful out here tonight." 4 pairs of bird eyes turned towards Tobias. He looked down at his talons, and if he'd still been a boy, he almost certainly would have been blushing. It's just, I always like it when you're all in your bird morphs with me. I mean, I like being with you whenever, but when you're birds too, well, it's just cool or whatever, Tobias said. Lights shone through the windows from a few scattered houses, indicating another station stop would be approaching soon. It's a beautiful night, Tobias. Rachel was in her bald egomorph, and in a clear, crisp moonlight, she was as beautiful as ever and powerful. Tobias kept looking down, shuffling his talons around on the roof of the train car. I'm flying up ahead to wait for the train at the next station. Who's coming? And like a glimmer of silver, Rachel was in the air. The rest of the Animorphs stayed put at their roosts, watching her glide and soar, her eagle body strong, ferocious, but also graceful, like an acrobat in the night sky, stars disappearing behind her silhouette, and a flicker of light reflected from the snow along the tips of her wings. Ever so faintly, the luminescence of the Milky Way appeared, and Rachel soared, higher and higher, her eagle body twisting, then tumbling in the rush of the Arctic night. In these moments, she was free, while far above, somewhere out beyond the Milky Way, the Yeerks, the Andalites, the Hork-Bajir, and all the rest fought their wars. She was unstoppable. She was incandescent. She could put down entire armies single-handedly in these luminescent moments. Wow, Jake said. She's radiant. The rest of the Animorphs were still watching Rachel, a glimmer of moonlight rising from the star in the east. Come on, Tobias, Jake said. He lifted his Arctic turn wings and was off. That broke the spell enough, and Tobias and Marco were off right behind him. Well, what the fuck, Cassie said to herself as she watched them all fly off after Rachel. She hesitated for just a second, almost imperceptibly, before making a beeline flight toward Jake.
BT Aldrich again. I think you understand what's going on by now. Chapter 4. The next morning, Rachel awoke with a start. Holy she... Rachel began to scream. Cassie, who was laying next to her, grabbed her arm, startled too, but not losing her cool. Directly above them, they were face to face with a huge reindeer. What the fuck is that? Rachel whispered. The reindeer looked from her to Cassie, as if it had the same question about them. Rachel, Cassie said calmly, I want you to not freak out right now. This is an adult male reindeer. And if I'm not mistaken, I guess he's not just any reindeer. Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, Rachel whispered as quietly as she could. Holy shit. The reindeer ignored Rachel and continued to look intently at Cassie. We're at the North Pole, Cassie began to say, and if I'm right, I'd say we're in the presence of one of the most elite reindeer in the whole world. She was now looking directly in the reindeer's eyes. Please, forgive our trespass. You arrived here late last night without shelter or anyone to meet us, and I apologize if we intruded on you. My name is Cassie, and I'm truly honored to meet one of Santa's famous reindeer. Rachel gasped and would have unleashed another stream of oh shit. But she knew better than that, especially if this reindeer really was who Cassie said it was. The reindeer and Cassie continued to lock eyes with each other. The reindeer was huge, standing over Cassie and with antlers that made it look even bigger. Steam foamed as it exhaled into the frosty air. For what felt like an eternity to Rachel, no one moved. Cassie remained silent, eyes fixed on the reindeer. Season's greetings, Cassandra, the reindeer spoke. Rachel had to put both hands over her mouth as tight as she could. I am Dancer. Rachel was squirming with astonishment while Dancer continued to speak. Your trespass is no inconvenience, Cassandra, though my concern is how you came to be here in the first place. May we stand up to speak with you, Dancer? Cassie said. We come here under distressing circumstances, and I would like to address you face to face. Rachel let a squeal of delight escape from under her hands. She was watching her friend Cassie be such a boss right now. Here they were, in a strange, unfamiliar place, talking to a reindeer. Not just any reindeer either, and Cassie was crushing it. Please make yourself comfortable. Please make yourself comfortable, Cassandra. I know that human children are bipedal organisms and prefer to stand on 2 legs. Dancer replied. Cassie and Rachel stood up off the ground where they'd slept, brushed themselves off, and ran fingers over their hair. Thank you, Dancer, Cassie began. Like I said, my name's Cassie, and this is my friend Rachel. Hi, Rachel blurted out, before blushing and covering her mouth again. Cassie continued, and we're here with our 3 other friends, Jake, Marco, and Tobias. We're the Animorphs. Cassie continued to recap the first 2 books, and to tell Dancer how they'd follow Tom here because they knew the Yeerks were up to no good in the North Pole. Dancer listened intently the whole time, looking sympathetic and increasingly concerned as Cassie continued her story. And then you woke us up in the morning. And here we are, Cassie concluded. An amazing story, Cassandra, and alarming if all you say is true, Dancer replied. Tell me, Cassandra. You said there are 5 of you, and yet I only see 2 girl children and 2 others sleeping in the loft. This is only 4, Cassandra. Oh yeah, Cassie said, giggling slightly. I guess I forgot to say, Tobias is a hawk now. He got stuck in a morph. Dancer thought about this response for a moment before replying. Highly unusual, Cassandra, and troublesome. But I wonder, could I see you morph into one of these animals? Oh, right here? Cassie asked. Yes, if this place does not bother you, Cassandra, answered Dancer. Cassie began to answer. Well, of course, what is it, Cassandra? Inquired Dancer. Well, it's just, I could morph into an animal or a horse, or I could morph into you, Cassie suggested. Dancer paused again before responding. Cassandra, that's certainly a forward suggestion, but I'm willing to accept the possibility. What do you need from me? Just to hold you, if I may, momentarily. You feel a slight wooziness for a minute, but nothing that'll hurt you, Cassie said. Sounds like when I have a drink of eggnog, if you know what I mean, Cassandra, said Dancer. Cassie didn't know what he meant, but continued anyway. And then I'll be able to morph into you, but only for 2 hours at a time. Cassie responded. Well, Cassandra, that sounds like an awesome power. And I would like to see both of your morphing powers as well as a doppelganger of myself. So yes, you may proceed. Dancer knelt down on the ground. Even like this, he was still taller than Cassie or Rachel, who was tall for her age. Cassie approached Dancer, and with her eyes fixed on him, she placed both her hands gently on either side of his head. She focused on Dancer, and they connected. She could feel his strength, his shape, and something else. Of course, this wasn't an ordinary reindeer after all. He could fly. After a minute, Cassie pulled her hands away and took a step back from Dancer. Okay, she said. I'm ready. Dancer didn't respond at first, as he came back from the brief haze he had been in. Looking at Cassie, he nodded. Rachel watched what happened next. As Dancer sat on the ground, Cassie grew larger, her arms and legs extending, fur sprouting all over her body as her clothes morphed away. She was growing taller, a snout emerging from her face, her ears growing larger, and then the antlers. 2 stubs emerged from her head, sprouting, splitting, dividing until there it was, a second Dancer face to face with the original, still looking directly at each other, a mirror image. Rachel, look out! Rachel turned to find the source of a shout. It was Jake, followed immediately by Marco. We'll save you, Rach. They were scrambling down the ladder with the loft firmly slept. Rach, she shouted back, since when is that okay? Rachel, those things are huge, Jake yelled as he reached to the ground. Duh, guys. Okay, first, Rach. No. Second, you don't save me. Third, you look out. Fourth, that's Santa's fucking reindeer to you. Fifth, it's me, Cassie interrupted. Hearing Cassie's voice stopped Jake and Marco dead in their tracks. Cassie, Jake shouted, confused. Then who's? This is Dancer, Jake, replied Cassie. He let me acquire his
form so I could demonstrate a morph. It's actually quite an honor. Dancer? Asked Marco. What kind of name is Dance? Oh, like Dancer, like Dasher, and Prancer and Vixen. Comet and Cupid, Jake said. Donner and Blitzen. You were correct, Jacob. Marco. Tell me, where's Tobias? Asked Dancer. So you can fly and stuff? Marco asked, completely stunned. Ignoring the question, Cassie asked, guys, where's Tobias? Still asleep in the rafters, I guess, Jake answered. I can wake him up. Jake started to walk back toward the ladder, then stopped and turned around. A reindeer that can fly, huh? Tobias is gonna love that.